Thank you so very much for inviting me. It's a privilege to be with you with this distinguished audience in a place with a great deal of history here for Houston, the Petroleum Club and the old humble building, as I still think of it as a native Houstonian. There's a lot of wonderful history here, and if I had my choice of anywhere in the world to go visit, actually the first stop I'd make would be Istanbul and Constantinople. And as a student of history, as someone who has always loved, I've had the privilege of going to Israel, which was top of my list. I've been to Taiwan. I don't take many trips, but the one that's absolutely at the top of my list today is to visit Istanbul because of my love of history and appreciation for the extraordinary impact that the city has had on both Western and Eastern civilizations. I have always been intrigued with particularly very ancient history. I've had the privilege of meeting Dr. Robert Ballard, the scientist who discovered the Titanic, who, as you may or may not know, has actually done a lot of work along the coastline of Turkey, and discovered that one time there was probably in the Black Sea, I guess, was much obviously smaller, maybe a little lake, and that Constantinople, I don't even know how long ago this was. One of y'all may have to educate me on this. But Ballard's discovered, looks like maybe there are traces of civilization deep below the edges of the coastline there, and that perhaps at the end of the last ice age, when the sea levels rose, all the water came pouring into the Black Sea, and that may have been the original inspiration for the idea of Noah's flood. An extraordinary place with extraordinary history, and also something that I really discovered Constantinople in college because of a wonderful professor I had at Southern Methodist University, Dr. Jeremy Adams, who taught medieval history and introduced me to the Fourth Crusade, which I had no knowledge of, and is one of the most terrible black marks in the history of Western civilization that almost nobody's aware of. That the Venetians diverted the Fourth Crusade from going to the Holy Land to go sack Constantinople, just fundamentally so the Venetians could control the trade in the Mediterranean. It's an extraordinary place with an incredible history that I look forward to visiting one day, and certainly would have been on Thomas Jefferson's list had he been able to get to as far east as that to visit Turkey. You have really given me a great gift today, and having a chance to talk about my hero, Thomas Jefferson, my favorite subject, to talk about how Republican Jeffersonian principles can solve any of the problems that the country faces today. And I've got a fairly limited amount of time. I know we need to stay on schedule and be out of here as shortly after 1 o'clock as we can, so I'll keep it as short and focused on point as I can. Let me begin by frankly laying out the magnitude of the problems that the country faces today. This is not widely known. This is not something that the country is aware of, but should be. And I'm certainly doing my part to educate constituents. I've actually suggested in large meetings of other members of Congress that they tell their constituents what I'm about to tell you. And they said they won't do it because it's too scary. It's too terrifying. They'll all get thrown out of office. Well, I think it's important. The only way to deal with a problem is to know about it and to confront it up front. And I have no fear of it because our district is as conservative as I am. I'm a Jeffersonian, and because I know for a fact, as Mr. Jefferson said, that any problem that we confront can be solved with Republican principles, because Republican principles will always untie the knot, no matter how bad the problem is. The problem the country faces, not only are we about to hit a brick wall on energy, with the fact that we cannot, over the years, and it's not Republican or Democrat, it's really a whole long history of administrations going all the way back to Ronald Reagan, Republican and Democrat administrations and Congresses prohibiting exploration within the United States. The oil industry, which got hammered, this wonderful petroleum club has seen some dark days when oil was $10 and $12 a barrel. And the industry, frankly, just folded in. We know, all of us, I'm a fourth-generation Texan, born and raised here in Houston, and remember vividly, I was getting out of college at SMU in the 80s when the bottom dropped out of the oil market here in Houston. And those of you that are from Houston may remember this. There were all the people moving down here from Michigan when things were thundering, and there are actually stickers I remember people had on their cars that said, "We don't care how you did it." In Michigan or up north, because we had such a strong economy, and then the bottom dropped out. And as a result of oil being so low for so long, the not only has did we quit exploring, but we quit building infrastructure. And if you're not aware of it, the infrastructure is really way out of date. There's not enough oil rigs or the pipelines. We haven't built new refineries. The infrastructure for finding, producing, and transporting oil is terribly old and out of date and needs to be replaced. And it's an unbelievably expensive proposition. And on top of it, you cannot even explore in the United States. And again, that's not Republican or Democrat. That's been both administrations. But as a general rule, 90% of the Republicans in the House, including me, will always vote to explore anywhere in the United States we can. I'm a big believer in drill here, drill now, and pay less. Now, that's a short-term solution, but nevertheless, we keep losing those votes because 90% of the Democrats vote against drilling anywhere, and we always lose about 10% of the Northeast Republicans, and as a result, we can't drill. So we've got this terrible dilemma. We're about to hit a brick wall on energy. Now, I understand today we're approaching $150 a barrel. Coupled with that terrible pressure on the Texas, in the national economy, if you go to the GAO's website, and this is the part that nobody talks about. This is the scary part, and I don't want anybody to lose their appetite. We can deal with this. Remember, Mr. Jefferson, we are Texans, we are Americans. What I'm about to lay out for you is almost unknown. But the existing financial obligations of the federal government are so massive that in order to pay them off, every living American would have to write a check today for $175,000. Now, the amount that you hear, the national debt of $45,000, that's in there. But the number you hear everybody talk about, the national debt, is about $40,000. That's not the whole picture. It's much worse than that. If you look at the unfunded obligations that must be paid, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all the pension funds out there, all the other guarantees that have been made that the law requires that the taxpayers fulfill, the total amount is $54 trillion. That is such a huge sum of money that if you were to give you an idea how big a number that is, if you were to confiscate all of the property in the United States, everything we own, just take everything we got, everybody in the nation, and sell it at auction at face value, it would only pay for 90% of it. By the year, in 11 to 12 years, we've already been formally notified by Standard & Poor's and Moody's. The United States Treasury Department has already been formally notified by Moody's and Standard & Poor's that they are beginning the process of downgrading the AAA bond rating of U.S. Treasury bills. By the year 2020, in 11 to 12 years, United States Treasury bills will be graded as junk bonds. No one will tell you this. I was already conservative when I got to Washington. So I got a lot of the gray hairs from briefings on Homeland Security, and then when I heard this, that added a lot of gray hairs. This is why you see me vote no so much. I got a guy running against me this fall who I'm confident is going to portray me as a right-wing knuckle-dragging Neanderthal because he votes no so much. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and it is criminal for Washington, D.C. to pass on that kind of debt to my sweet daughter and our kids and our grandkids. We are spending our children's money that they don't have. And that's why I vote no so much. And that's why all of us in Washington, we need elected officials that will follow Mr. Jefferson's core principles. Because the problem is so massive, we're going to hit this brick wall on energy, and in less than 11 years, we're going to hit this brick wall. We become Argentina. The dollar's already fallen through the floor. We can't pay off, the Chinese already own over $1 trillion of our national debt. These sovereign funds of countries that are hostile to the United States are buying up our debt, using the money that we are spending on oil. That's like the